duty cut. Should we give away a few minutes? Go ahead, we'll start with the seat. I'm gonna start and then. I think we can call for order and please get started with roll call and everything.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead and call the Mountain Line meeting to order for March 18th, 2026 at 9:01 a.m. Go ahead and start with the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman, members of board. City of Flagstaff, Lori Matthews is expected. Video County, Geronimo Vasquez is expected. City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet. Here. Thank you. NAU, Josh May.
Here.
Thank you. CCC, Tony Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Excuse me, staff in the room and on Zoom. And we also have Martin Tees, a guest here maybe on behalf of Director Vasquez. We have our attorney Scott Holcomb.
Good morning.
And we have Jill Barnett with Transpro.
She actually joined.
Oh, she did.
She'll rejoin later.
Okay, all right. Then I will turn it back to you, Chair.
Thanks so much. Now we'll go on with our safety minute. Sam Short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Today's safety minute is on spring's variable conditions. As we move through March, we're in a period of transition, operationally and seasonally. This is often when risk increases, not because conditions are extreme, but because they are inconsistent. For transit systems, this shows up in a few key ways. Variable conditions, sudden changes in temperature, wind, hopefully rain, and even snow on occasion can be unexpected and present. As conditions improve, there can be a natural decline in vigilance and complacency. Not weather is often the greatest risk this time of year. When warmer weather comes about, it brings more pedestrians, cyclists, and overall activity around our system, increasing the need for heightened awareness. Safety performance is not just about policies, it's about consistency and execution, especially during periods of change. Even as conditions outside improve, risk does not disappear, it only shifts. As we move into spring and summer, let's all stay focused on safety of the organization. Thank you and welcome to the March board meeting.
Thank you, Sam. With that, we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we'll go into executive session.
For the record, Director Matthews has joined the meeting.
Thank you.
Is anyone, oops, talking?
Director Matthews, you're logged on twice. Rhonda, the boardroom is muted.
Okay, thank you, Scott. We did not realize we were muted. So I will real briefly go back through Matt Kimmons celebrating 5 years as a transit operator. Matt is a core part of our operations team with a good attitude and a fun sense of humor, and we're happy to celebrate his 5 years. Thomas Botroff and Larry Sosi and Dave Golombowski are all celebrating their first year as transit operators. And with that, that is my milestone anniversary report. And sorry for everyone online that we were muted.
Thank you for that. Now we're on to call to the public. If you have any members of the public, this is the time to speak on any items not on the agenda.
We have Bianca here in the room that joined us post session. And I was able to ask her in the lobby, she said she just wanted to observe.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so thank you so much. Down to item number 6, approval of the minutes for both the regular session on February 18th and then the special board meeting on March 2nd. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. So moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Unless a member of the board wants to pull this item, look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now on to item number 8, Mountain Lion Strategic Plan. Heather.
Great, thank you. Good morning, members of the board and board of directors. The recommendation on the screen is a culmination of the efforts since September to evaluate our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan and to develop an updated 3-year plan. The new strategic plan is focused on success outcomes as developed by this board with input of staff and our transit advisory committee. And it does include key performance indicators that we have designed to help us measure effort and success as we move forward. With that, I'm going to turn our presentation over to Jill Barnett of TransPro.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, members of the Mountain Line Board and Mountain Line team. I'm Jill Barnett, Senior Project Leader with TransPro, and honored to present the Mountain Line Strategic Plan today for 2026 through 2029. First, I wanted to recognize that today is National Transit Employee Appreciation Day, with appreciation to members of the entire Mountain Line team serving the community each and every day, and particularly those team members who are so closely attuned to this strategic planning process. Next slide, please. First, today we'll revisit the process and timeline that guided the development of the strategic plan, including Mountain Line's why, which captures the mission, vision, and organizational values. As Heather said, Mountain Line's strategic plan is built on 4 key pillars of success: service excellence, employee investment, financial stability, and community value. So over the next few minutes, I will walk you through the measurable success outcomes established as part of this plan, and the tactical work that's designed to ensure that these goals translate into an even better experience for customers in the community and a stronger organization for Mountain Line staff. Finally, we'll take a look at the performance scorecard, which captures the metrics to track as part of this process. And lastly, best practices for bringing the plan to life. Next slide, please. So a quick refresh of our process and timeline. We kicked off the strategic planning process with the Mountain Line team in late October of last year, and quickly began engagement with Mountain Line staff and stakeholders, which included the Board of Directors and Transit Advisory Committee. Then on November 19th, we were on site with you for your strategic advance workshop, where we reaffirmed Mountain Line's mission, refined the vision statement, participated in a SWOT exercise, and identified and prioritized Mountain Line's success outcome areas. Thank you to the members of the board and Transit Advisory Committee for participating in this important work. In December, we were with the Mountain Line leadership team again, first for a full day in-person workshop, followed by a virtual half day, where we defined measurable success, identified potential performance metrics, and introduced with the team really how the work plan and scorecard align with one another and align with those broader success outcomes. Through February, we worked with the team to refine those work plans and metrics, identified targets and baselines, and developed the plan as you see it here today. Next slide, please. So we began back in November with Mountain Line's why, the organizational mission, vision, and values. And at that November 19th workshop when we were together, this group reaffirmed the mission statement, getting you where you want to go. Mountain Line's mission statement is fairly recent, did not really need refinement as part of this strategic planning process. And we love to see this across the bottom of all of your board meeting slides, really demonstrating that strong commitment to a simple, memorable phrase that says so much. Together, we worked to put a touch of refinement on Mountain Line's vision statement, which you see here, leading the way with sustainable transportation that connects communities and provides value for all. Next slide, please. Also at our November and December workshops, we reaffirmed Mountain Line's organizational values, those core values that really demonstrate Mountain Line's commitments and guide how employees show up for one another and show up for the community each and every day. As part of that strategic planning process, we always ask the question, what does success look like? So what does success look like for Mountain Line? And we asked that in November. The themes that emerged through that exercise were categorized into 4 success outcome areas, which you see here: service excellence, employee investment, financial stability, and community value, and prioritized by this group at that November workshop. So you'll notice down the right-hand side a prioritized points allocation that totals to 100, which you will later see aligns with the performance scorecard. You might ask, what does service excellence really mean? How are we defining employee investment? So each statement or success definition attempts to capture the promises of excellent service to customers and funding partners, really investing in Mountain Line's employees, responsible stewardship of funding to ensure safe, reliable transit options, and finally, partnerships that demonstrate value to the community, helping to meet those broader goals of sustainability, mobility, and smart growth. But beyond those definitions, what does it look like to win in each area? So measurable outcomes for each success definition help to establish clarity of success for the team, for the board, and for the public, particularly in this first year of the plan. So for service excellence, Mountain Line is committing to establish a clear baseline for customer satisfaction across fixed route and paratransit. In terms of employee investment, Mountain Line will continue with the employee engagement survey, aiming to hit a score of 76 to ensure that the team is feeling valued and supported. Ensuring financial stability means maintaining that operating fund balance that represents 25% of the 5-year operations cost forecast. And finally, in community value, using a survey tool to establish a baseline that measures the percent of the community that recognizes the tangible value Mountain Line provides. So these 4 targets help move Mountain Line from broad definitions to concrete accountability and metrics. And once baselines are established and the first year of performance is well understood, we would advise as a best practice that Mountain Line revisit measurable outcomes every year and either establish or adjust the targets for the coming year. From here, let's look at the specific work plan that will help Mountain Line achieve these targets. So how do you move the needle, and what is the importance of the work plan? TransPro really emphasizes the importance of this to ensure that the strategic plan doesn't just live on the shelf or isn't just a link on the website. The work plan is really the engine behind the strategic plan. And the Mountain Line team, through this process, has identified 16 major initiatives that are spread across the 4 success outcome areas. And it's important to note that each initiative or project here has a designated owner, a team, and quarterly milestones that have been identified to ensure that the team is maintaining momentum throughout the year. As you can see, this work is balanced between external service, such as that customer satisfaction survey, which will really provide some informative data, bus stop improvements and an on-time performance strategy, as well as internal initiatives like an employee engagement strategy and a financial monitoring process. Together, these 16 projects really represent a prioritized focus for the year, ensuring that staff time and staff work is directly contributing to the success outcomes that have been identified as part of this plan. I'm pleased to show you the Summit scorecard. So you may be familiar with a performance monitoring report from the Mountain Line team. And as part of the strategic plan, the Summit scorecard will feature some additional performance metrics that serve as indicators of success. So the scorecard serves to really translate high-level success outcomes into really specific weighted KPIs to track throughout the year. So as you look at the scorecard, and I understand there's a lot of information there, so I apologize for that. You will see that every metric has, the definition, the target, designated information system, and the specific owner of that result or information system. So this structure is designed to ensure that we measure what matters using objective, verified data. Right? The scorecard serves to ensure that that strategic plan remains a living document, a living plan that drives daily operations and keeps the team focused on delivering the highest value possible to the community. Lastly, we recognize, next slide please, that the most successful strategic plans, as I said, are not those that sit on the shelf. They're the ones that are lived every single day. We recommend 3 specific best practices to help bring this plan to life. And the first, already see you doing some of that, weaving the mission, vision, and values into the fabric and everyday work of the agency. So this includes things like continued incorporation into board meetings, into team meetings, making mission, vision, and values a tangible part of our employees' daily work, not only through the presence of those in the meetings, but also through reflections, making those an option in performance reviews, and then just daily demonstration of those values and the culture that we create and tolerate. Secondly, a commitment to building the necessary information systems to back our goals with hard data, really allowing data to drive Mountain Line's work and decisions, and clearly establishing who owns those information systems, as well as the inputs and the outputs. And then finally, establishing a regular cadence of reporting on the scorecard, ensuring that there's transparency and accountability to the plan. It has been my privilege to serve as Mountain Line's project manager for this strategic plan. My colleagues Matt Webb and Luke Allison were also very critical to the strategic planning effort. And on behalf of the entire Transpro team, thank you for trusting us as your partner in this important work. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board or any comments from the Mountain Line team.
Thank you so much, Transpro, and really everybody that had input on this. Appreciate your work and all the effort that went into it. Are there any questions for Transpro or staff on the strategic plan? Must have knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Thank you. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the Mountain Line strategic plan along with the key performance indicators.
Chair, I move that we adopt the Mountain Line strategic plan along with the accompanying key performance indicators.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Matthews. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So on to item number 9, the CEO evaluation criteria.
So again, good morning, and I'm gonna turn this over to Jill, but I wanna set the stage a little bit. When we initiated the strategic plan effort, we incorporated the development of the CEO evaluation into that process. This was an intentional decision in response to conversations we had this past fall about the existing evaluation methods and processes, and a desire to see that evaluation tied to our strategic plan and the development goals of the agency. We want to ensure that the evaluation measures the CEO position are tied directly to and reflective of the strategic plan. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Jill with Transpro to go through a presentation of the developed material for your consideration.
Thank you. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present today. Next slide, please. So to begin, just to set the stage, wanted to share with you the characteristics of a good CEO evaluation as we think about it. So a couple of things here: clearly defined success outcomes that align with the strategic plan, ensuring clarity of CEO outcomes that are communicated at the beginning of the year, communicated or collaborated upon, whichever is the case, ensuring that there's regular feedback between the board chair and the agency CEO, that the design of the evaluation is a balance between both objective measures of success as well as subjective measures of success. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And then lastly, a characteristic that we would share, but that we are not going to talk about or get into today, would be that CEO compensation is tied to results in addition to the market data available for the position. Next slide, please. So I touched on the balance of objective versus subjective data. So just talking a little bit about that balance. So the objective outcomes of the evaluation are those that could be informed by the performance metrics that have been established. So an example, the agency increased overall customer satisfaction by X%. That's a quantifiable result that's backed by data. The more subjective side might be that's tied to agency values or leadership characteristics that the board observes the CEO living and performing and demonstrating on a daily basis. So less objective, results based, but subjective based on observation or anecdotes. So our proposed framework that has been shared with the chair and vice chair incorporates 5 areas: success outcomes, organizational values, the CEO priority areas, leadership characteristics, and finally a section for feedback and reflection to the CEO and GM. Next slide, please. So section 1, the CEO success outcomes. This would be an objective assessment in each area, rated 1 to 5, with an opportunity for feedback as well. So the 1 to 5 rating would be the one is a fails to meet, all the way up to 5, which is outstanding. So the definitions here for CEO success are modeled after the organizational success outcomes. Service excellence, for example, is modified slightly, just simply based upon the timing of evaluating success for the CEO versus success for the agency. So if this review is conducted at the end of the fiscal year, the survey data is unlikely to be available yet or the baseline established yet, but the process is likely in place. So the definition for year 1 is based upon progress and activity towards completing that survey in order to establish the baseline. And for future years, it would be recommended that this be a more concrete number for the outcome or a percentage increase over the baseline once that's established. Employee investment here, simply as a reminder, this 3% increase is identified over the current target. This may not be reasonable each and every year of the plan. Mountain Lion might knock it out of the park one year and really have very little room to grow in terms of an improvement in this area. So again, we would recommend that each year the framework include an adjustment to those targets. So this number is as it stands today, but it would be subject to change. Next slide, please. Continuing in section 1, based on success outcomes for the CEO, again, these next 2 areas are based on those success outcome areas of financial stability and community value. The definitions, again, are modeled after the organizational success outcomes. Community value, like service excellence I mentioned before. For example, this one's modified, again, based on timing. The survey data or the baseline is unlikely to be established at the end of the fiscal year. So the definition for year 1 would be based upon progress and activity towards that baseline establishment. And again, for future years, we would recommend that this be a more concrete number or percentage increase over the baseline. Moving on to section 2 and 3. So organizational values and CEO or GM priority areas. So again, section 2, organizational values, this would be a subjective assessment for each value rated 1 to 5, again, with an opportunity for comment. And you would be giving a rating for each value area, so each of the 5 values. And then in section 3, priority areas, I wanted to give a little bit of context around this. So this could be special projects or initiatives over and above those that have been identified specifically in the strategic plan success outcomes. So just as an example, based on some other agencies or my own personal experience, like completion of a particular capital project, attention to a particular metric area that's tracked on the scorecard, but might not itself be the definition of success, or other initiatives for the CEO specifically. One that I had during my time at a transit agency was front page stories, obviously positive front page stories to increase publicity for the agency. And I would say, bear in mind for this year 1 evaluation, if priority areas were not identified at the start of the fiscal year, we would recommend simply a reflection from the CEO and then board member assessment based upon that reflection. And then as a best practice in future years, it would be wise for the CEO and the chair to ensure alignment on these areas at the beginning of the fiscal year, so there's a mutual understanding of those priority areas. Moving on to section 4, leadership characteristics. Again, this is a subjective assessment of 5 suggested leadership characteristics with the opportunity for comment. So this would be similar to how you rate the values area and would be based upon the board's observation of these 5 leadership areas: strategic vision and policy alignment, financial stewardship and public accountability, community and stakeholder engagement, operational excellence, and board governance and collaboration. And then finally, section 5 is for feedback to the CEO. And this is open-ended feedback based upon some questions. Questions that you see on their greatest strengths, areas that they might develop their skills to bring greater value, questions that you'd invite them to reflect upon, and things of that nature, including additional behaviors or adjustments to their approach. So this proposed framework really does a couple of things. Clearly defines the measures of success that are aligned with the strategic plan. So that ensures that, CEO success equals agency success, that it's not, this is not designed as a matter of how could an agency CEO elevate themselves that might come at the expense of the agency. The agency's success and the CEO's success are tied very closely in this framework. It combines objective and subjective assessment and also provides you as members of the board with an opportunity for feedback and reflection. And we would advise as best practice that this assessment be made available to all board members, administered by a third party, with results then provided to the chair and CEO for their discussion and collaboration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Jill, thank you so much for this presentation and this information, and I apologize if I missed it in the beginning. But several months ago, we had talked about getting together as a board, by March to develop this type of review process for the CEO. So am I understanding that, because I really appreciate all this information, it really helps us moving forward. This is kind of a result of that, and you're giving us kind of an outline of a suggestion on what the performance evaluation moving forward will look like, and then we can adopt it from there.
That is correct. I met with the chair and vice chair and shared with them some examples of frameworks that we had provided to other agencies, adopted that to come up with a framework for Mountain Line, and I'm sharing that with you guys today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the Mountain Line CEO evaluation criteria, selection of strategic plan, and key performance indicators.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank y'all. On to item number 10, Megan Coons. We're gonna go ahead and take a 5-minute break. So, sorry, Megan. Thank you. Request of folks in the room. 5 minutes, we'll be back. 10:41.
Okay.
So now, get back to it. A short break, item number 10. FY 27 workforce budget, Megan Coots.
She has the slides, or can I do it from?
There's a, it should be in there.
I see. Great, I think this is my first time officially presenting to you all, so, yeah, it's good to see you. No easy on it. So I'm here to present the fiscal year 2027 workforce budget, and we will do the operating budget and capital budget in next month's meetings.
Should be the big that. Oh. Okay. Now try, sorry.
There you go. Okay, so just to get right to it, our total workforce budget for fiscal year 2027 comes to approximately $10.7 million. This is about a $1 million increase over fiscal year 2026. And I will go into some of the factors that went into that increase for this year. For fiscal 2027, our compensation plan includes between a 3.5% to 4% increase for the staff on step tables, kind of depending on where they are on that table, and a 3% increase for all other staff. Some of the notable changes that came into the development of this budget include the revision of our overtime policy to end our double time policy and recognize the FLSA rate of time and a half. So I believe this policy was adopted in on July 1st of this year. I don't have all the history and how long it's been going on. But at that time, the assumption was that we would be able to decrease our dependency on overtime, and that the fiscal impact to this policy would be minimal. We spent a lot of time looking at the data and the trends on how much overtime we're using, and we continue to need to spend or to use about 15% of our shift work is overtime hours. And so as we look at the fiscal sustainability of this policy, it just became clear that the cost was too great and that we had to revert the policy back to time and a half. So that's part of the development of this budget. Another policy that another change that we had adopted in this policy was we took our maintenance manager position and we split it into two different positions, a fleet supervisor position and a facility supervisor position. What this does is it gives us two specialists instead of one generalist. And this change is actually incorporated into the org chart that was presented, I think, last fall. The maintenance manager position is now vacant, and so this is a perfect time for us to be able to incorporate this change into our budget. Another addition to the budget was two more positions. We are adding two bus detailer and a fueler. It's a combination bus detailer and fueler position. They will be doing both. Right now, our bus detailer function is being filled with a third-party vendor who's performing that function, and so the cost for this position will be partially offset by the removal of that contract in the operations budget. They will also be fulfilling the bus fueler function. And what's happening right now is that this is being fulfilled by our transit operators. So when they bid on our shifts, they're bidding for like 40-hour week, but then they're expected to also fuel the buses. And so because they're bidding for 40 hours of driving time plus fueling, that position or that function is being filled with overtime. So as we look at trying to reduce our overtime costs, the addition of this position will also offset some of those overtime expenses. And then one more thing that we added was we decided to include, we have 8 part-time 20+ transit operator positions. These are 20-hour plus positions. And in prior years, we had assumed that these positions would be funded with vacancy savings. But these positions, they're fully burdened employees. They have health insurance. We have them on our team. We know what the expenses are going to be moving forward. So to true up the budget to the expenses that we know that we're going to have, we included these positions in the permanent budget. Just kind of a change in the budget methodology as I'm starting to look at the numbers. We did, what I would like to do is look at overtime, being funded with the vacancy savings, because the vacancy savings are the true cost driver of overtime. The higher the vacancies you have, the higher overtime you're going to have. So those two kind of move together, whereas these positions don't really tie to the amount of overtime that we have, or to tie to the amount of vacancies that we have to be able to fund those positions. Okay, so I don't know if I should pause for questions or just move on, but, okay, so for the budget, we are a participant in the NEPA trust. Just a reminder, so all of these changes, for the insurance expenses were adopted by the NEPA trust. So we have, our vision insurance is pretty minimal. There's going to be no increase this year. The dental cost is increasing by 5%, but that cost is so small, it's only resulting in a $2,000 increase to the budget. Our life insurance, we are changing providers this year, and NAPAC was able to secure a contract with a different provider who will be able to increase the coverage from $40,000 to $50,000 for employees, but also we are reducing our premiums. And so this will be a $7,600 cost decrease for Mountain. And this policy has no cost to the employee for the minimum policy. The medical expense is the largest cost increase. This is going to be a $65,000 increase for Mountain Lion. This is a 6% increase in premiums. The NAPAC Trust has looked at the national cost trends, the healthcare cost increase trends nationally, and they were looking at like an 8.5% increase. And so what the trust has decided to do was spend down some of their existing fund balance to cover some of that increase while minimizing the increase in premiums for employees and the participating employers. And this 6% cost increase is for both the employee and the employee premium. They both move up at the same rate, which is consistent with the city of Flagstaff and the Union County fund policies. Just a recap of ASRS is actually holding very steady. It's just decreasing 0.02%, so not a big impact. And the only impact will be the additional ASRS paid on the higher wages. So in addition to the health benefits and compensation, we do have a full range of benefits that we offer to employees as we invest in their success. For FY27, we have the full range of leave policies. We have vacation leave with a vacation sellback option offered in November, December. We have a whole sick leave policy that includes up to 8 hours where employees can take that time off to participate in wellness activities. We offer anniversary leave for employees on their anniversary dates. This is between 8 and 16 hours, depending on their length of service with Mountain Lion. We also offer evacuation leave for employees whose homes are in emergency evacuation zones, and reward time, and that can be offered at the discretion of the employee manager for like days for holiday, like that. And then we also include a budget for staff appreciation day. Today is one example, the employee appreciation day. That's where that budget lives. We also offer paid continuing education and training opportunities to invest in our employees' professional development, along with 12 EAP sessions per year, a tool allowance for maintenance staff, and a very robust wellness program. We have several planned wellness activities through the year. We have our wellness room with a bicycle you can check out, with exercise equipment, whole wellness library. Very popular program. Even more popular in our wellness program, I think, is probably our housing assistance program. We do offer a short-term loan of up to $5,000 to employees to help them secure new housing or prevent loss of housing. Sometimes it can be very difficult for an employee to come with first and last month rent and a security deposit. So we make that payment directly to the landlord, and the employee pays back the payroll deduction. We also offer a referral program for employees referring new hires. And then a stay-on bonus, and that's paid out incrementally and to the employee during their first year after completing new driver training. And the last bullet is probably the most important. We offer paid training for new CDL operators. So not only is the training for the operators free to them, but they are being paid to do so, which is a huge benefit. Okay, so just to summarize, the actual fiscal impact of the budget. We have the pay plan is coming to about a $270,000 increase, and that's just the increase in wages for existing employees, plus the ERAs on those wages. The FTE additions comes to about a $731,000 increase. This is the addition of the fleet supervisor and the facility supervisor, offset by the removal of that maintenance manager position. And then the 2 detailer dealer positions, and incorporating the 8 part-time plus transit operators into the official budget. And then the net increase for insurance benefits comes to about $71,000 for a total workforce budget increase of $1,074,557. Okay. Any questions or comments?
Questions, comments from the board?
Sure.
Please.
Question. So as you were sharing the time off slide,
Yes,
there was the reference to the anniversary,
yes.
and just curious, personal interest. If I'm assuming that regardless of their anniversary date falling on a weekend, for example.
Oh, it goes into an accrual bank. So on their anniversary date, we have an accrual bank where we just fund it with however many hours they're eligible for, that they can use at any time in the following year.
Okay, all right, I was curious if it had to be the anniversary month where they have to take the time off, or how that is distributed.
No, it's very flexible. They can use it any time during the year.
Thank you.
And if I may add, it's a use it or lose it benefit, so there's no cash payout for that. It's time made available to them while they're.
Chair, I have a question. This is Director Matthews.
Please go ahead.
Could you go back a slide, please? And just give me 1 second. So, 8 part-time, 20+ hour for transit operators, so I'm thinking equivalent to 4 FTE. And 2 detailers in 1 fleet, so 8 full-time FTE additions. That averages $91,000 a person if it's a $730 increase. Am I missing something?
So this is for the wages and all of the ERAs associated with these positions, so that all of the health insurance and the ASRS associated with it. The 20+ we do budget at 0.75, so this would actually be 6 bodies, so 6 people that we're covering with health insurance.
All right. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Can you recap for me, and I'm sorry, I missed it. Where are we getting the money for $1 million increase?
It's been incorporated into our long-term financial plan. We have been spending for the money for the part-time plus transit operators. We have been spending that year over year. So this is just to true that up so that we can get, so it's not an increase, it's just putting it into the budget.
Okay.
So if I may just expand upon that. So when we went to the voters in November of 2024, and we brought to you the organizational structure, all of that's designed to support that growth in services over the next couple of years. The staffing structure that we're proposing is also designed to support that growth. So it was anticipated as part of the tax question, it's anticipated in the 5-year financial plan. To the point that Megan was just making, we have the full part-time positions being filled, we are paying them benefits, that's part of our strategy of how we keep part-timers, which are crucial to how we meet our service requirements without overtime. We've been spending that, and then every year we've been trying to spend it out of savings. And what we're trying to do here is be more clear that there are things that we should not be counting on spending. We should not be paying for out of savings. Overtime should be paid for in savings, but not these kinds of things that are crucial to how we deliver service.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the overtime policy, going from double time to time and a half. I wondered if you had any information on the how much your overtime is currently utilized, and sort of what the anticipated cost differential is there between adjusting the policy.
Right, so when we pay, we looked at a lot of historical information, right? So it's between, we were looking at 15% of shift hours are covered with overtime. So when we pay that out, if 15% of the hours are covered with overtime, that means 30% of the wages are covered, are being paid out in double time. So I wish I don't have this spreadsheet to show the calculations, but I do anticipate it will save about $400,000 a year just by taking out that extra like 0.5 increment from time and a half to double time.
Yeah, for sure, then. Yeah, I didn't expect that you'd have exact figures. But I'm just concerned a little bit about employee sentiment, right? Folks who sort of begun to rely on getting that double time and are now gonna have to be scaled back a little bit. I know that's outside of your realm directly, but just for staff's concern, I know that's gonna be top of mind for folks.
Certainly, it sounds like you had some comment.
Yeah, we actually implemented this change already.
Oh, you already did.
So to give you a full picture of how we got to double time. So if you'll recall back a couple of years ago, we had mandatory overtime. We were assigning people 8, 10, 12 hours of overtime a week, mandatory. And so we really wanted to recognize that additional strain on their life and their homes and their time, and we piloted double time. We then determined we got full staff, as full as we can ever get to, it feels like, that we were gonna be able to reduce the dependency on overtime, and therefore we'll just make double time our policy, to recognize that people pitch in and they help out and they come and work overtime. But what we're actually seeing is that people are doing, I think to your point, they are counting now on that double time. And so we recently made clear to staff a lot of our shifts reduced backwards from overtime shifts to regular time, meaning their bid only has 40 hours, not 45. And then secondary to that, effective March 1st, we rolled back double time to time and a half. We provided the explanation to staff on the reasons for that. And for the long-term financial sustainability of the company, Megan really recommended we need to roll that policy back. At the time when you're thinking you're not gonna have overtime, it feels sustainable, but when you know 15% of your shifts are filled with overtime, that is not sustainable. So we made that financial decision, and I'll be honest, we had one employee that came forward and said, I am concerned, I need a pay raise if you're gonna take my overtime away. And we have not seen a change in morale around the agency. I was very attuned to that. I asked all staff to be out interviewing people because that was our concern. Is it's a double punch. We're reducing the amount of overtime available to them, and now we're reducing what we pay. Someday in the future, maybe there's an opportunity to revisit it, but for the long-term goals of Mountain Line, which is growing our service and our programs, we needed to make this financial decision.
So is that the double time policy, did that originate like due to like COVID workforce shortage type?
It was,
or is it?
yeah, it was really designed to recognize people when we were mandatory assigning the overtime.
Sure, okay. Thank
We've
you.
had one week period so far of this new policy, but I would also, it just, some more metrics that I've seen from this change is that with the double time, we were seeing the double time hours consolidated with a few certain employees, a few, I don't know, 8, 10 employees. Who had been earning sometimes like 50, 60 hours of overtime a pay period. This last pay period, we still had the same number of overtime shift hours built in overtime, but they were more evenly distributed amongst all of the employees. And so our 20 plus and our 20 minus employees had more hours. And then just all the employees, it was just more evenly distributed at the time and a half rate.
We feel like the double time rate are, well, artificially incentivized people grabbing those shifts and learning to live on that income. So, yeah.
I can see how it would. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to item number 11, the biannual performance report. Busy.
Thank you, Chair and Directors. Thank you, Rhonda, for moving slides for me. Excited to show you a 6-month snapshot of performance for all of our various services that Mountain Line provides. I'm going to start with the Mountain Line bus here and then go through the others. So each slide will look pretty similar. At the top, you received the top portion in your packet. It is an attachment to my staff report. So if you want to, dive into some more numbers, you can compare, etc. So the top is the financial and service performance benchmarks. The past 4 years are on the left, and then the current year and the goal are on the right. So please note that we're only showing half of FY26, that's July through December, and we're comparing trips to full years. So, those counts look bad, whereas the ratios, those are accurate because we're looking, 6 months to 6 months. And then at the bottom is the chart of monthly ridership for the past 3 years. The bars are the current year, Route 10 is in orange, and the rest of the system is in blue. The lines are past years, so lighter lines are older. FY24 is the lightest line, and then FY25 is the darker line. And this chart is published to our website each month for every mode of service that we provide. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into ridership in the next slide, but I wanted to note that the second half of FY26 will include NAU routes so that, it is a little, it will be inflated and will likely meet our FY26 ridership goal, which is nice, but I mean, not crucial, but very nice, always nice to meet a goal. You'll notice that our cost per passenger and hour was higher than the goal due to all of the reasons Megan just mentioned. And, there's multiple items, just like Megan mentioned, that are being addressed or being done to address that item. So it's there for some review. And I'd be happy to jump around. Please let me know if you have questions, but I am going to go to the next slide and just kind of take a deep dive on ridership. Because we have seen an overall decrease, 4% decrease, July to December 2025 compared to 2024, but it's really driven by a few routes. So I did a route breakout here. Route 10, you can see it's 40% of our system ridership, and that alone was 5% down over the previous year. We did talk with our partner, Aaron Stom, Director of Campus Operations for NAU Transportation Services, who reported a similar decrease on NAU shuttle routes caused by lower enrollment rates. So I think between the two systems, we're definitely both impacted by the lower enrollment rates. And then on top of that, we do have our EcoPass program. NAU is a huge user of that because they have paid parking. It definitely incentivized a lot of people to utilize that. However, we are seeing a decrease in unique passes that were distributed to staff. And Aaron proposed that that's likely a decrease from NAU employee recruitment. So, between students, staff, we're definitely seeing a hit to Route 10. The rest of the system is actually up overall 1%. You can see plenty of routes are down, but our overall increase is driven by the service enhancements that we implemented in July of 2025. So you can see that Route 5, that orange route, it was is up, let's see, 17%. And we're definitely putting that to the 30-minute frequency increase from 60-minute frequency last year. And we have the Route 8 extension, that light blue teal line, up 16%. And then the Mountain Express also had an increase in frequency, up, it's small numbers, but it's also an increase. And then another thing that's happening in the background, and actually, Rhonda, can you go back one slide? You'll kind of see it here is, so we have, as you probably know, our buses have lasers at the doors that count passengers, automated passenger counters, APCs. We have to certify those. So either we use APCs and we certify them, or we manually count all of the people that are boarding our buses. So we choose APCs, let's automate this, but we have to certify it. Part of that certification, we're comparing boardings from the APCs to manual counts. Again, literally people counting people coming on and off the buses. And so this comparison in our most recent certification last summer, we did find that APCs were overcounting by about 8%. And so, you know, that goes into an algorithm that cleans our APC data, and that's what's being reported here. So you can actually see that went into place in October, and that's really where we're starting to see kind of an overall decrease over last year. We were making a lot of awesome gains last year, and now it kind of feels like it's sliding backwards. So behind the scenes, staff is just going to do another recertification of our APCs just to understand if the trips we monitored last year were outliers, and adjust our algorithm as needed. So, you know, we'll report back on this in 6 months. We hope to see, you know, we'll just see what the APCs show, and adjust as needed and keep the board updated. Something else I did want to mention, let's see, next slide, please, Rhonda. Let's go back to the routes, is we're also doing lots of things to increase ridership. Prop 488 alone, service enhancements, as we saw in right here in the last 6 months, really driving ridership. In August of this year, as Jackie mentioned, last month, we will be increasing Route 66 and Route 3 frequency. Both of those are down over last year. Again, kind of a stagnant system, a lot of need and desire. I think we'll see a lot of ridership increases. We're extending Route 8 a little further west. So we should see a bump on Route 8, even more of a bump. And then the operational assessment. I know you all have not heard anything about this project yet, like the progress, status updates, but on the behind the scenes, we're working on so many exciting things to just deliver the remaining Prop 488 service enhancements, to optimize our system with all of that planned growth from Prop 488, to address our reliability problems. I mean, some of the reliability problems can be reflected in ridership here. If you can't trust the bus to take you where you need to go at a certain time, you're not going to take it, or if it doesn't go there frequently enough, etc. So definitely some problems on our system right now that we're addressing with the operational assessment again. So I do see a brighter future for Mountain Line on the ridership horizon, but just kind of want to talk through what we're seeing, this weird blip after we put so many service enhancements out. So happy to talk through any questions you have, but I am going to go to the next slide. Thanks, Rhonda. So I'm going to shift to a different service, demand response. So we have two services here, paratransit and microtransit. They both provide origin to destination service and operate only when trips are requested, similar to a taxi. These services are commingled using the same Mountain Line vehicle and driver, and the trips are grouped together as a shared ride for efficiency. Paratransit service is an eligibility-based program available for people with disabilities as required by the Federal Transit Administration and Americans with Disabilities Act. And then our microtransit service has been in service since FY22. It's open to the public, and it supports our more vulnerable community members to access needed services in the Huntington industrial area. So paratransit's on top, microtransit's on bottom, and then paratransit chart is on the left and microtransit's on the right. So hopefully that, in case you can't read the headers there. So paratransit, bottom left here, we're seeing an 8% decrease over last year. Nothing to be alarmed about, it's definitely a service for people who need it. Individuals also have taxi available, which we'll look at that service next. So nothing to be alarmed about, and definitely a costly service. We're not encouraging, excessive rides on our paratransit. It's really just about getting people where they need to go with the abilities that they have. And you can see that the cost per trip is similar to microtransit at $58. However, over the past few years, it's fluctuated for both programs. And just behind the scenes, we're adjusting the cost allocation, again, because it's a commingled service, trying to find something that's most appropriate to split those modes. Right now, we're using ridership, but we plan to reevaluate that. So it's a little funny. Over the years, we're trying to figure out what that should look like in our budget and accounting systems. Next slide, please, Rhonda. Taxi program. Let's see. So we have our city and our county taxi program, and they remain the prime choice for paratransit eligible customers due to individualized service. So paratransit eligible passengers can take taxi instead. It's a same-day service. It's also a much lower cost to Mountain Line than that of paratransit. So you can see here, $18 in city, $27 in the county. Much better than the $58 we were seeing on the previous slide. It's a thriving program for city and county citizens. We are seeing the city is down 20%, so that's the bottom left chart. Unclear why, but I don't think anything to be alarmed about. That program definitely fluctuates, as you can see in the charts. The county is up 9%, which is wonderful. So just some good updates. Again, a great program for city and county individuals who need this. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And our last service that we provide, Vanpool. This continues to see incredible growth year over year. We're at 45% increase over last year, and it is quite an efficient, cost-efficient service. It's 47% lower cost per trip than fixed route. Again, fixed route was at $8.52. So really good. I mean, it's definitely a popular program, and it's also reduced over 620,000 miles from being driven just in the last 6 months, that July to December time period. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And there was a lot of interest about the Vanpool groups at the last presentation, so I just wanted to share this. I know I sent this out by email. This is still the case. Nothing's changed since the last presentation of our various groups. So we do have 15 Vanpool groups. It continues to be a great service for workers who live or work in nearby towns such as Williams, Happy Jack, Sedona, Winslow. Some employers shown here are supporting the costs of these Vanpools in addition to the county subsidy of $400 per van per month. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Bitsy? Right, I did want to just make one really a comment regarding the decrease on Route 10 and NAU. And I know Erin Stump, our transit operations director. I think she has a good finger on her pulse in terms of the ridership, but I think it's worth noting also that significant and really fairly recent advent of students bringing scooters and electronic transportation to campus, and I think that also is a significant contributor rather than any enrollment decrease. So I think it's worth noting. I see Jeff agrees with that, so I think we're on the same page. But I think for the public's understanding, I think that's a big contributor. there's no other questions or comments. Thank you so much, Busy. And we'll go on to item number 12, electric bus proposal report.
Great. Thank you, Director. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So we're continuing to monitor electric performance. We did add, as Jeremiah presented last fall, the Ford Sprinter van. Shown here, I do not have data to share with you this time, but I am looking forward to sharing it with you next fall. Honestly, I don't have access to the data just yet, working with our friends at Model 1 for that. So it's out there running, it's doing great. I'm excited to report back on it. And our chargers have not changed since the last time I presented. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So I wanted to start the presentation addressing questions about costs that staff received in October. I thought they were wonderful. So we're going to focus first on the cost per mile and kind of that break-even point. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And then go kind of jump back to the other KPIs at the end of the presentation. So here's what you've seen in the past. Energy cost per mile. This is just one of kind of 4 cost categories for our fleet. So this has been updated through December 31st, 2025, and the 6-month average is provided at the right. But Director Mayer asked to see the total cost beyond just fuel in October, which is a great question. Next slide, please. So to answer that question, I want to take a step back to our ZEB plan, Zero Emission Bus Transition Plan. So we updated that just last year. And that identified the incremental costs over the full transition to electric buses. That's going to take 14 years as our hybrid buses reach their useful life, get replaced with electric buses. And the total cost we're looking at there is $32.9 million, a lot. That is a sticker shock for sure. After we apply the federal cost share for all of these expenses, for example, fleet, on the bottom, that teal box is an 80-20 share with the Federal Transit Administration. Maintenance and fuel are 50% share, and infrastructure is 80-20 as well, just like fuel, fleet. So applying those, federal local cost sharing that's available, we're seeing that the local cost is $5.7 million. So still a lot of money. Climate change is not cheap. We all know this. And so next slide, please, Rhonda. I'm going to break this into a by mile stat. So first I'm going to start with the total cost. So last slide, we looked at total cost, local cost. Here we're just looking at total cost. So on the bottom left is current year. So this is a look back with our current fleet, our hybrids, and our electric buses. And this is total cost again. So we have the 4 cost categories: that infrastructure, fuel, maintenance, and fleet. You can see that infrastructure is the biggest cost item on our electric buses on the far left, that bar. So we're looking at $148.44 per mile, right? It's shocking. However, when we flash forward to when we going back to the ZEB plan in 2040, when we fully transitioned from hybrid to electric buses, and there is the hybrid baseline included there for comparison, we do anticipate a much more reasonable comparison between them. So what's driving, right? So on the left, we're seeing that there's 2 electric buses in our fleet, and they are taking the full cost burden of infrastructure, and they have very low miles. So, it's looking really bad for the electric buses, where our hybrids have very high miles. Our 2 oldest hybrid buses in service are from 2008. So yeah, old buses, they have a lot of miles. So that's really driving down that per mile cost. But then if we kind of make everybody on the same playing field, flash forward, it's $5.99 per mile for electric buses, and hybrids $3.80 per mile. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And then this kind of going back to that local cost share, like what's our actual local burden? We have the same comparison, current fleet in FY26, where again, that electric cost is very large. and FY 2040. Where they're a little bit more comparable, $1.51 per mile for electric and hybrid at $1.13 per mile. So I just want to take a beat here and just recognize that, you know, staff's doing their best to use the plan in place. We're really talking about a new industry that doesn't have a lot of benchmarkings. It definitely feels a little bit like the Wild West in the electric bus industry, but you know, staff's just definitely giving you the data with the most confidence that we can. There's a lot of unknowns. Like this is all assuming that buses, fuel, parts, everything stays the same as it is today, which we all know will not be the case. Unclear which direction that goes. So there's just so many unknowns. And so I wanted two questions for the board that I have after this exercise, and it doesn't need to be answered now, but just kind of a reflection. Would the board prefer to see kind of this total cost of ownership or local cost of ownership at the electric bus performance reports instead of just the fuel? I definitely get the feeling the answer is yes, and so I'll plan on, you know, continuing to present that in the future and we can talk. And then a second question is really just hypothetical is, you know, is the board comfortable with $1.51 for electric, you know, $1.51 per mile for electric costs, that local cost burden compared to $1.13? So again, hypothetical. I have one more slide and then I'll just kind of pause on the cost question. Next slide, please. I wanted to address the break-even point from Director Matthews' question. So when is the break-even point for electric fuel savings? So I did provide, so we have that $5.7 million that you saw in a previous slide, kind of that cost burden. This whole slide is really looking at us when we are in 2040, when we have fully transitioned to electric buses, and, you know, kind of starting at that point, looking forward. So we have that $5.7 million burden for infrastructure, maintenance, you know, all those 4 cost categories. We continue to purchase electric buses year over year. So there's that local cost burden. So those are expenses. And then on the savings side, our right side of the screen, we have that electric savings. Again, this is assuming current conditions, which is unlikely, but again, best we can do. So that's, you know, about $1,000 per bus savings in electricity costs over diesel. And then there's the social cost of carbon. So this was quantified for our 2020 ZEB plan. And the social cost of carbon is an estimate of the economic damages on agriculture, human health, property damage, and other related factors that would result from emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And the source, it came from the Interagency Working Group of the federal government. This was a program put in place in 2009 by President Obama, just trying to create consistent estimates for use across agencies to use the best available science. So the ZEB plan provided this amount, you know, in 2040, when we're fully electric, we anticipate the social cost of carbon savings from our buses alone at $96,465. So if we take those 2 savings and then we take kind of that local bus purchase year over year, we might break even in 100 years, 21-26. So again, this is the best information that we have right now, and I'm just going to pause to see if there's any questions or comments.
Questions or comments?
Yes, Jen, I have a question.
Well, first, Lori, and then we'll go to, I saw Jeff raise his hand. So Lori first.
Busy, thank you for this information. It's really helpful. So on your slide where you were showing the reduction by 2040 in fuel costs and stuff, can we go back to that? So does that mean, like, you said that by 2040 we will be all electric, but how does that reduce our per mile cost? Is it because we will have older fleets and so the upfront cost won't be there, or I was a little confused.
Yes, thank you for that question, Director Matthews. So it's really about economies of scale. So on the right side in 2040, we will have 30 electric buses, that will be split and they will have so many miles. Almost reach their useful life across the board. So really just breaking that down, the greater the miles, the greater the denominator, the per mile, the smaller that number is going to be. So we're looking on the left side, 2 buses, very small amount of miles. On the right side, 30 buses, lots and lots of miles.
Okay, and then my next question is, you talked about the federal match or the shared expenses in this. Does that go away?
I hope not. It's not anticipated to go away. It's not on the table to go away, but again, everything can change. Everything can change.
And then my next question is, in your calculations, are you factoring in the projected rate increases for electricity?
I am not. I'm using current conditions and costs.
Okay.
Mhm.
And on the social costs, and I know you just have to find what availability and information is out there, but is there any consideration to the fact that we're surrounded by the Ponderosa Pines, which is a natural carbon sink? And so maybe the social cost is not as comparison to LA or San Francisco, because our carbon emissions, a majority of it gets absorbed through our natural carbon sink.
That's a good consideration. I'm really just drawing on kind of the smart people in the room that interagency working group that created these estimates using the best available science. And I sure hope they looked at all of that, Director Matthews, but I agree, there's just a lot of questions with all of these estimates overall.
Thank you, Busy. I appreciate all your information.
Okay, now, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll just start with the carbon accounting piece. Carbon accounting is very interesting. And when carbon accounting really takes effect is the reduction of burning fossil fuels across the country. So this is what makes it hard to picture, is that when they reduce carbon, it's not necessarily just your local reduction. We're supposed to be thinking nationwide. So whatever you reduce on your fleet is reducing the national carbon. So that it's very interesting. I'll just leave it at that. But I do agree, Lori, that we have it should be different here, but typical carbon accounting tries to account for all of the carbon being used. So I wanted to ask, do your formulas take into account replacement of like the Mountain Line fuel island tanks or anything on those lines that have no federal subsidies or anything like that? Because like our NAU fuel, we're trying to find funding for that, and that's a $2 million expense. So just wanted to put that in there too.
Excellent question. Thank you for that. It doesn't. It really assumes that, we anticipate certain things to go wrong, but not everything to be replaced. So any, costs that have been kind of put into the hybrid, the like diesel fuel tank, et cetera, is reflected in that 1 penny of infrastructure currently and 1 penny into the future. So a lot of unknowns. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Busy, I appreciate this slide, showing the total local cost of ownership. And looking at currently, right, FY 26, really infrastructure makes up the lion's share of that total cost of ownership. And I'd like to see just going forward, I think, into FY 27 and onward. How that graph changes and that share of the infrastructure really goes down as more miles accumulate on the electric side of the equation here. So I appreciate this slide that you have incorporated in this discussion.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Lizzie?
I have a few more slides after this.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that discussion. That was very helpful. So efficiency per mile. So these are other slides that you've seen regularly. I did provide them in the attachment in your board packet. I did include some peer agencies here, and this is just in December 2025 because I didn't want to average averages across the last 6 months. I don't have their exact, miles and kilowatts charged, etc. So just a snapshot. Flagstaff's doing awesome. Honestly, across the board, we're quite low across the 50 some agencies that are reported on the Zebra. Let's see, Zero Emission Bus Resource Alliance that we're a part of. So interesting data. Definitely a lot of dips here. So next slide, please. And these dips can be accounted by temperature a lot of the time. There's also another very interesting thing. So here we're looking at temperature. The gray boxes are temperatures. Temperatures increase in July. You can see a dip in January. And our kilowatts per hour, our efficiency, lower is better for that. Really our inverse of the temperature. So when temperatures are low, our efficiency is very poor. It's very high. And this is because electric buses operate at peak performance when they can use the most stored energy for propulsion, which in turn maximizes bus range, which reflects on efficiency. Cold weather reduces range because energy from the batteries is required to maintain cabin and battery temperatures. And Mountain Line uses electric heaters and AC whenever we need to. We have still not used the electric diesel heaters that are on the buses. We have only used our electric heater and AC units. And so we're seeing really the raw impacts of a fully electric bus. But it's nice to have that, cushion if we need to use it for those auxiliary heaters. And then one other thing I want to note is that back in, let's see, we had a training last fall, and you can kind of see where the two lines on this graph, the blue, light blue, dark blue, kind of come a little bit closer together. Just having trainings, having our operators, feathering the gas pedal, feathering the brake, letting the bus regenerate the battery. It's really important. So bus operator actions are key to efficiency that you see here, which then reflects in the range that our buses get. So kudos to our training team on continuing that training for electric buses. And we're seeing it in the data. So that's great. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So I have 2 more slides. Here's gallons of diesel avoided. We have a total of 144,955 gallons avoided since September 2023. And next slide, please, Rhonda. This reflects in emissions. So here I'm using methodology from EPA's greenhouse gas equivalency calculator and taking those gallons of diesel and putting them into emissions avoided, 1,288 tons of carbon dioxide saved. And that does equal about 300 cars removed for 1 year. I realize that we're looking at a 1.5 year snapshot, and I am translating this into a 1 year analogy, but it's the best we've got. So that is my last slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any additional questions for Busy? Thanks so much. Right. On to item 13, delegation authority update.
Don't have anything specific from the report, but I'd be happy to answer questions. I do want to note that we have heard the feedback about how we are using the procurement authority authorized under the procurement resolution and delegation of authority. And you will see more procurements coming to you until such time as we can have that discussion on the procurement resolution, which is currently scheduled for May.
Director, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So Heather, are we gonna, I'm actually curious in reading the delegation of authority. Will we get that soon or not until May?
I'm sorry, there is a report, a progress report in the packet called delegation of authority that does summarize any actions taken using the resolutions the board has passed regarding grants, procurements, or contracts. The conversation about the procurement resolution and how we use it going forward will be at the May meeting. And until we have that conversation, we are carefully considering procurement amounts and following the procurement policy, which is anything over $100,000 needs to come to the board for consideration. So treating that resolution as suspended essentially.
So did you just say that we have a policy right now that says anything over 100,000 comes to the board? Did you?
Yes, we have a purchasing policy that says unless there is a procurement resolution, then the board will make decisions over $100,000. The procurement policy does recognize the resolution, and that resolution is normally presented to the board in June of each year as part of the budget process. And with the passage of that resolution, then the board has delegated the authority to conduct budgeted procurements to the CEO position. Because I've heard the concerns about those procurement decisions, I have suspended that resolution. Board did not direct me to do that, but I have in practice suspended it so that we are bringing those procurement decisions forward in the coming months until such time as we have a conversation about the procurement policy and the resolution and the desire for those decisions going forward.
Great, thank you. And that, what was in the budget each year, that verbiage, if you will, is that in the email? I apologize, I'm out of the country, so I'm having spotty reception and I haven't received all the information from your email.
No worries, I have not sent anything regarding the procurement or procurement resolution at this point in time.
No, I meant the delegation of authority that was referenced is when we approve the budget each year.
Yes, it was in the June, I believe the June packet from 2025. The packet for today's meeting includes a progress report that summarizes anything that we have done under that delegation as allowed by the procurement resolution.
Okay, so I can go back to June of 2025 and find the delegation of authority verbiage.
It was called a procurement resolution. So there's three parts of the resolution. There are three separate resolutions. They were enacted by the board prior to my role as CEO, and they've been renewed in each subsequent year, with the exception of the contract resolution. I believe that's a standing resolution that we don't bring back annually. We do bring back a grant resolution, which authorizes the CEO to conduct grant executions. And then we bring a procurement resolution, which allows the CEO to execute and award and oversee procurements that are budgeted or in the financial plan. Both of those resolutions would have been, I believe, in the June of 2025 packet as applicable to the 2027, the fiscal year 2026 budget, which we are currently in cycle of.
Thank you.
There are no further questions on that. On to summary of current events.
Good morning again. There is a current event report in the packet, but I do have a couple of highlights to share with you, starting with our March anniversaries. So we celebrated our milestones earlier, and now a couple other anniversaries. On the left, Jackie Leonard, our Deputy General Manager, celebrating 14 years with Mountain Line in the month of March. Herman Ramirez celebrating 11 years as a transit operator, and our own Billy Lizzie Collins, who just presented, celebrating 7 years here at Mountain Line. Jackie and I did participate in the legislative fly-in with many of our transit colleagues 2 weeks ago now. During that visit, we were able to present to Senator Gallego the Southwest Transit Association's Legislator of the Year Award that really was designed to recognize him for his efforts around transit funding. He is part of 2 people on the Senate side that dropped a bill to move our small transit intensive city set aside from 3 to 5%, which is a significant funding support system for our own programs. Additionally, we met with 4 of the Arizona delegation, staff from Gallego, Kelly, Crane, and Stanton's offices. We also met with the Senate Banking and House T&I committees. All of our conversations were focused on reauthorization. That's probably the most important next thing for transit and transit programs. To the question that was asked earlier by Director Matthews about, is the funding that we use for maintenance secured? Well, it's only secured if funding is reauthorized in these transportation funding or part of the THUD bill. And then in each of those budget appropriations. So it was great to be there and to speak with many people. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Congressman Crane's efforts on our behalf as a result of our visit. We signed, I think I shared with you a couple months ago, we gave a letter of support to the Salvation Army in pursuit of a grant, and they sent to us this thank you card. They did receive their grant, and that grant program is used to buy transit passes from our programs to support people in their programs. So we're happy to share that success with you and really recognize that partnership. As discussed last month, we have initiated our first bus rebuild. So this is our oldest vehicle, bus number 85, 2008 fleet vehicle, being put on a flatbed to be shipped to California to begin its rebuild process. So we're very excited to share with you its goodbye images, and hopefully in September we will be able to share with you its reintroduction to our fleet. We're very excited to have this mechanism available to us. I did put in the current events report at the time that I sent it to you that our project was suspended. I'm very happy to report to you that as of Friday, the project was unsuspended. It was quite a whirlwind. I did try and detail in my message to you the history of that award and our obligation process. It was quite something. From the award to the time where we were allowed to obligate was over 18 months to do an environmental review. Environmental review is typical. We were surprised by the length of time on that environmental review, since it was the same footprint, the same property, and the same purpose, but that's what we had to do, and we did do it. That created a delay in the obligation efforts. And then once we started the obligation efforts, it took about 2 times longer than anticipated. What was reported to us, which we all read probably in the headlines early in 2025, is that with a new administration overseeing federal funding and federal programs, there was a desire to examine and audit applications to ensure that they were legally allowed, and our application got caught in that process. So the good news is we hit pause on the work on Tuesday. We executed the grant, a $16 million grant, on Friday at 3 p.m. and Kenny was put back to work on Monday. So essentially we lost 6 days on that project, and we are back on track to start the demolition work next week. I do want to recognize that while we were in DC, we did meet with the Federal Transit Administration specifically to talk about this grant and the review that it was under. And then Congressman Crane's office did send a letter of support asking for that DOT review to be expedited. What was expressed to us is that they were looking to confirm if the funding was being used to electrify our fleet. This project was very specific to maintaining our fleet regardless of propulsion type. And so those were the statements that we were able to issue, and we think and believe that that is the reason that the review was expedited and those funds were made available to us. We do not have anything in writing telling us that. Those are all the conversations happening within the transit industry and what we've seen amongst our peers. Wanted to draw your attention to this request to move the May meeting. We have at least had one board member respond to let us know that moving the meeting from May 20th to May 21st was not possible because they are scheduled to be in DC, but we are looking to try and figure out what to do with our main meeting. So it is either moved to the 21st, knowing that at least one board member can't be present, or move one full week out to May 27th. So if you could look at your calendars and let us know. We of course could hold this as a Zoom meeting, which is challenging. Jackie will be at an APTA event, and I will be attending a high school graduation in Kingman for my oldest nephew. So if that can be accommodated, we appreciate it. If it cannot be, we will certainly adjust, but I wanted to draw your attention to that.
Heather,
Yes.
may I interrupt? They just moved my DC meeting to April.
Okay.
So I think it was May 20th, right?
We're looking to schedule to May 21st, yes.
Okay, so I'm available the 20th or the 21st now. I won't be in DC.
Okay, great. Thank you, Director Matthews, for confirming.
Thank you.
And then last thing, I have a notation here. We wanted to mention that the Arizona Transit Association Conference is the first week in April. It does not affect any of our meetings. However, we will be mailing board meeting packets one day late. So normally we try and send you those out 1 week in advance. Rhonda has the opportunity to attend and participate in that conference this year. I'd like to support her in that ask and allow her to send those packets out just 1 day later. So if you have any concerns with that, let me know. And with that, that's my current events report.
Thank you. So. Next is so schedule of meetings and working agenda. There's no questions or comments on the working agenda. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Director Matthews, for participating from afar.